try to dig the colorful things we say.
Republican, is for the rich who wants to take your house and do this. Because when we get down to it, the eminent domain, the status, the power grabbers, this is all a progressive, centralized ideology. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, the limited government, and even limited government is labeled what? That's
radical.
White supremacist.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Did you see Chris Evans? Not Chris Evans. Chris Pratt.
No. Okay.
The richer.
So Chris Pratt, he wore a "Don't Tread on Me" shirt with the American flag behind it. Yeah.
Well, it was the
Don't tread on me. And "Don't Tread on Me" is apparently white supremacist now. The whole idea behind "Don't Tread on Me" is I'm an individual, don't tell me what to do, let me live my life. You couldn't be less supremacist in any idea.
No, and what the flag was started like the Betsy Ross flag.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you actually understood it.
We can talk about that after too.
These are things that set things in motion. You know what I mean? For the stage that we have today. Without them things sort of setting the stage, we don't sit here in the way that is actually diverse and sort of growing that way naturally.
So if we talk about the Betsy Ross flag, okay, so one of the main things during that they were discussing, so during British rule, right before the the American Revolution started taking place, states or colonies at the time were trying to outlaw slavery. I believe it was Maryland was trying to outlaw slavery, and England would not allow them to outlaw slavery because England had slaves and they were forced to keep their slaves. George Washington, everyone at the time that had slaves could not give them up. There was only a single loophole that allowed them to give them up when they died, and that was it. So slavery was actually the American Revolution, and the revolution that happened around that flag vicariously was for ending slavery, at least in the northern states. It's a very interesting thing. Lots of the framers of the Constitution and the Declaration were very anti-slavery.
Well, even if they were, labeled deists, or if they, which when you do see a lot of them, had the church choirs and church, and even in the, the army choir was leading the church and all that. It's clearly written in there, the master and the slave are the same. Mm-hmm. There's no getting around that. And this is how we get a lot of the South has that backwards ideology where it was sort of like, like they talked about removing certain things, like the slaves got a Bible, but with all of that type stuff removed. You know what I mean? And then all of the rebellion stuff. And it's like anything else. When you get a church or an ideology within an institution, you end up getting this sort of false narrative.
So, and I think, so we were talking earlier about the send her back chants, at Trump's rally and things like that. And it's an interesting thing. And I think a lot of people don't look at the individual events. They just have the broad sense of the world, and when they hear, the stuff they're going to hear about is Chris Pratt is a white supremacist now because he wore a individualistic t-shirt, absolute bullshit. The dumbass backlash on him is ridiculous. Nike canceling their American flag shoes, and then when they hear Rep Omar talk the way she does about 9/11, when she talks about the way she talks about just the country as a whole in a condescending tone lots of times, it's no wonder they have that reaction, because they are looking at this big liberal wall and they're not looking at the individual bricks, they're looking at the whole wall.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just fart?
No, that was not. I heard it too. It sounded like a car out there.
Okay, all right.
No, I heard a quote AOC today say, capitalism wasn't always here and it won't always be here. And I just thought, whoa, I don't think you understand what you're saying. And it's like sort of like Omar, I heard her say today that, the rest of the world says America the Great, but inside here, we don't see it, and I'm just, and it just blows my mind that you're taking the dream of the world, majority of the world, and then sort of cutting it down because it doesn't fit, your ideological terms.
Yeah. And I think particularly AAC has a very interesting backstory. Lots of people can kind of, some people say she had a casting call. And she won a casting call. That's literally how she has this organization behind her, helping write speeches, helping her prepare for events.
Absolutely, she does.
She could be considered, if you do some research, a puppet. Not 100%. I believe she is being authentic in certain ways. However, you can see a big difference from when she is Instagramming at home, and her concept and grasp of the ideas is much different than when she is out questioning someone in Congress. There is a large gap between the articulateness and just the general grasp of everything going on. And I think that's really interesting. I wonder if she is a pretty face for a Democratic organization in New York. That makes me wonder.
Well, everything is trying to get over. So, no matter who or what it is, they want to, develop a character that's going to help, progress their ideas.
Yeah.
And that's like anything. It's just that she's like a spokesperson for those ideals.
I think one thing,
because those ideals are socialism is a tough sell. Even as you're offering free stuff, it's still a tough sell.
Yeah. So when it comes to Cortez, I want to like her. I want to find her genuine, but I feel like she is just taken a way too big of a bite. And when she's not able to fully articulate, when she doesn't get her way, she's getting frustrated. Yeah. And let's face it, she is kind of been made a mockery of at least the internet. Yeah. It's not that she, it's not that it's easy for her right now, but I just don't think it's her spot.
Well, she communicates in narratives and rhetoric. And if you don't
emotion, very emotional.
You have to follow the rabbit trail to get what she's saying. If you don't agree at certain points, this is why it's sort of like with Kamala, we were saying in that interview on CNN where she was just being asked simple questions about how she's going to pay for a $32 trillion new program, and she's getting defensive, and then it's sort of. I said pretentious earlier, but it's they get way too defensive, and then it's like pushback, like you're attacking them, and that type of
They consider disagreements to be attacking, which is the worst thing. I was watching a video where it was very kind of self-congratulatory of herself. She was narrating this. They were painting portraits of how AOC was going to be affecting, the next generation, whoever's after Gen Z, and they were talking about, these little immigrant children are going to see us in Congress, and now they know that they can do whatever they want, and now that we've passed the Green New Deal, we can do this. And it's all of these things that these very small section of the country are politicians. They make it seem that what they are doing is cutting these roads for everybody. No, capitalism is what cuts the roads for people. It's what allows for opportunity. When you come top-down government market, you limit the opportunity of everyone else. Of course, we want equality and opportunity, but they make it seem that equality of outcome is true equality. It's not.
Well, and there's, I think there's the sort of, when you dissect that send her back stuff, if you eliminate all the politics.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the countries that sort of AOC, we forget Venezuela was talked about, like it was, this is going to be happening.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of the countries
They were happening in the early 2000s. Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And the ideologies and the forms of government that they advocate for, when you look in the world, the evidence is terrible.
Well,
and they don't recognize that capitalism, individualism is what makes America the little kid growing up in China, Africa, South America,
Want to come here.
everywhere.
Yeah.
This is the American dream. Isn't even just getting here, but she's not understanding what made it great. And then
Exactly.
the countries where that socialism is, they don't. It's not where you want to live.
Well, the thing is they're building up their ideology as the only way for people to succeed, the marginalized groups to succeed, and they're building up such a cliff that we're going to jump off of if we don't enact their crazy communistic policies, that people won't have a future here. That's absolutely the opposite. We are the country of opportunity. Look at Ilhan Omar. Look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. When they're living these realities that they state not to exist, it's hard to take them seriously.
Well, why the negativity is where I look. I don't say that being silly, but I heard AOC say, "I did my homework on other people's tables," and it makes me, because her mom was cleaning, she would say, and it's like, I know plenty of people.
That's the story.
Exactly.
That's the story.
My
we all
daughter,
live those stories.
Well, I know my daughter goes with her mom sometimes when she's cleaning, and she does stuff. You're being accepted into their. I work for well-off people all the time.
Yeah.
I bet you she was like given extra things, and yet she sees it as like a servant, and.
They think that the fact that you have to ask for something in this world means that's inequality, and that's totally reprehensible. No, things aren't free. You have to ask for them. People do have to help you out. In the end, that's what a community is, and they want everything to be handed out from the government, and you end up taking any sense of your commitment, it's give to your country. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. They're asking the country to do everything for them. Yeah. It is not the John F. Kennedy Democrats anymore.
No, and we forget too that part of the reason I think all immigration was kind of shut off in this country for a while was for assimilation.
Yeah.
And we see now that even the notion of advocating assimilation to new immigrants is like, whoa.
Sure.
Because we're right here. I was just working in St. Louis Park today. I mean, do you see how fast they reinstated that flag? And now Edina,
the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, now Edina just voted to implement it. You know what I mean? And it's,
it's, so, I think one of the big things, especially when it comes to capitalism, things like that, capitalism encourages assimilation and encourages the melting togetherness of people. When you have immigrants, we have sections of certain immigrants, majority of them, 90% and higher, are on Section 8 housing.
It's what it's turned into.
Yes, and they are not fully fulfilling the workplace. No. And they're not meeting people here, and they're not getting to know each other. And in the end, they're being hurt because of that. And we also are as well, because we're not meeting these new people that are coming in here. We're not making a relationship, and we're seeing the othering of each other. Because instead of us seeing each other as each other's lifelines, we're looking towards the government to solve all our problems. When you look to the government to solve all your problems, they say that it's free healthcare. We should all have universal healthcare, or no one should go hungry. Yeah, no one should go hungry, but there's also food shelves everywhere because people care about each other. And it builds relationships. They're not standing in line waiting for a food stamp or for something to come in the mail. You have to go. I'm sorry, you have to go somewhere and ask. It might be embarrassing. It probably should be a little embarrassing, but you have those opportunities to you there, and in the end, it creates more community. You're more invested in each other, and you end up building better relationships.
Well, and if you don't respect that American system, you take away those opportunities, and in trying to implement your collectivism, you end up just like the Venezuelans, where there is no opportunity, or like even in Europe, they might have, we got this social program, but you also live with high unemployment numbers.
Yeah.
Like it's normal.
Yeah.
It's like, when Conor McGregor, when he was, before he made it in fighting, he was he got a job as a plumber, and it was like that was a good job and it was hard to get.
Yeah.
So when he, went back on it, his family was like, "Whoa, you don't understand what
you're
you're doing,
you idiot."
And
yeah, he would have been set being a plumber.
well,
yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, I know personal people who grow up, been to jail, sold drugs, and now they're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that even Barack Obama said, "My story can't exist anywhere else." AOC's story cannot really exist anywhere else.
Yes.
And yet, we're being compared to something lesser than as a way to
We're
belittle.
being talked down to.
Well, absolutely, we're being talked.
We're being talked down to.
I think there's this. His name is David Pakman, and I always call him. It's like I've interacted with him on Twitter a few times. I call him George McFly because he looks just like him. But he has and he was on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's like, "You're so smart," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, there's your true colors, Joe." But he has a term called hatriots.
Hatriots? Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's so corny, and it's not even, it's lowbrow. But
sure,
patriotism is not restricted to a skin color.
No.
It's not even restricted to an ideology, because I've met liberal patriots where they love the damn country.
Yeah.
It's just they really feel, that they want everyone to get a leg up. But they just not thinking it fully through. And I noticed that Keith Ellison, he's a real respected in the true progressive circles. And I just think exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it's like he's one of those guys that I think leech on the good intentions of liberals, because he comes in there and does all the checks the boxes, but he's kind of that snake in there that is doing things, kind of like that undermines and does not sort of reinforce the things that make a person strong.
Yeah, well, I think the kind of people that are willing to run for a government position that have those ideas, they aren't going to be middle of the road, liberals. They're going to be the hardcore liberals, and then just this larger sect of moderates, they have no one else to vote for. That's a tough thing. They have nowhere to go, but they care and they want to vote, and they'd much rather have they'll take the snake in the grass over the devil himself. A lot of people see the Republicans as it's a tough thing, and the worst thing I see every day, especially in Minnesota, is a politician patting their asses on the back and a bunch of people applauding it.
Oh gosh,
that's what really fucking grinds my gears. It's we did this. We implemented a 1 penny per opiate drug tax for research. Yeah. Why didn't people just donate their goddamn money to it?
Yeah.
Why did they not take on that responsibility themselves instead of it's like the Penguins. The Democratic Party is like the Penguins going up to the cliff on the ice, and they're trying to push everyone off, to see if there's fucking seals down there that eat them, and then they all jump in at once. Yep. That's what it looks like.
Collateral damage.
Yes, they don't do anything individually. They force everyone else in ahead of them, and then they follow.
Well, and that's sort of, we see that in debate. It's sort of there's not much debate on the left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
And it's because of that reason. If you can't, then you're going to want to sort of stay in the weeds. You want to push the extremes.
Well, probably the funniest thing I took away from the Democratic debate was they were basically climbing over each other to say, "Hey, I'm the least racist," or
Which is
I'm the best ethnicity here. I have the most interesting story. That's one thing I noticed. And it's like, don't appeal to our emotions, appeal to our reason. You are going to be killing people on our behalf. Why should we trust you? We don't need some sad story from when you were a little kid that, hey, you turned out all right, you ran for president anyways. Turns out that was your story and you did okay regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck. Prosperity in America, how long have we had this prosperity? 50 years? My dad tells me stories when he was a kid. Dirt poor,
Yeah.
My mom, I think my mom remembers getting electricity. My mom, a generation, what the hell? Maybe it's her sister's a bit older, but like how far we've come and how little we understand or respect it.
Yeah, well, it's because we're
How is it?
disconnected from it.
We're disconnected.
Because it's sort of like right now, I mean, they could have had immigration when George Bush was in office. Don't want to give him credit. And even there was things, Obama could have probably done a few good things. Republicans are like, nope, don't want to give him credit.
No.
And we're living in a time where, it's everyone's telling a narrative to make to demonize the other side. And that's, and it's, especially hearing, we're so divided now. I disagree on that based on just common sense and history. But at the end of the day, it's always been there. Well, it's always been there. It's like we were talking about a certain friend of ours is kind of afraid to walk in that middle because, he's gonna get labeled being on the right. So that didn't just come here. I've known, just like you say, at work, I use not a feminine tone, but I'm a feminine.
Well, yeah, you put out a persona.
But why do you do that? Because that's the monkey dance that's asked of you. I know as a self-employed painter.
Aren't you being a little oppressed because of that? Shouldn't
that's
you
what
get
I'm
a
talking
stipend
about.
from the government? You should get a stipend from the government.
Well,
because you have to change who you are,
exactly.
Dennis.
Shouldn't you be able to shoot from the hip?
Why isn't the world reflecting your life and your true value? Okay, literally, that's the argument on the left.
Yeah,
that's it. That's literally it.
No,
I'm sorry, we're all eating a shit sandwich out here. Okay.
Well, absolutely. You know what I mean? And there's
it's a lot smaller of a shit sandwich than everyone else is eating.
Yeah,
it's for damn sure.
And there's no way around it.
No.
Oh yeah. Well, that's not a new phenomenon. As a self-employed painter, I know where I need to stick in the road so I can keep the plane up in the air.
Sure.
And that's sort of like a golfer. You lick your finger, put it in the air, toss some grass up, and you see where it's going.
Yep.
And and it's just the same thing. If you live in Texas, you don't drive around with an Obama sticker and think you're going to get work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you live in Minnesota, don't think you're going to be able to, put a MAGA hat on and think that you're going to be socially accepted. Now, and that's fine, except for, look, I talk to a lot of people, and the left is very dehumanizing. It dehumanizes. Yeah. It dehumanizes let's say a white voice, and it dehumanizes a black voice, a female voice, a male voice. Even the woman who just was ousted out of Planned Parenthood as the president. One of the problems with it is she was saying, this is for if abortion is healthcare rights.
Yeah. I
don't want to play politics, and she was not wanting to go along with the gender pronouns because biologically. Really? A man cannot come in and have an abortion. You know what I mean? So, and it was sort of, and she got ousted.
Feminists don't like the trans community too much.
Well,
that's the left eating itself in really weird ways.
Well, and this is one of the things I've said in our podcast is this will be the first time we've seen the left debate itself in our lifetime, because there's no doubt about Hillary and Obama. They played a centrist compared to now right.
Yeah.
Because that's even right now, that's where the country is. We are a center-right country.
Especially early on in the 2008 conversations and the debates, they were very centrist. Very centrist. Yep.
Well, and it was just where the Overton window was. It was where the normal is. Just like we were talking about with Philly D and a lot of these, anyone under 40 years old, our age, we've grown up, with sort of watching Roots in school and I had during the social studies class, the teacher was a white guy, Mr. Tooney. He was a rude asshole.
Yeah.
I feel like to me, he had a mixed wife and he had mixed children, and he would just, I felt, there was more than a few times with one-on-one when I talked to him, he just was a nasty guy. And it was, like, anti-white. And it was like a black school.
Fucking weird.
It was really
what
weird.
I would say is, and it's the left, how they at least I think they interpret a lot of things that the right says. The thing is if you are not consistently and constantly making efforts to uphold these individual sects of society, these individual tribes of society. If you do not individually call them out and make them feel pretty, you are not, you are against them then.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, because the Republican message, they'll call it a dog whistle, you know, because they don't actively mention these individual sects of society. You're the fucking government. It shouldn't matter. It's even same rules for everybody. It's there's just as many poor black people as there is poor white people. You know,
that's part of the social. They want to give out their lollipops and their fancy pants and get everyone on that little dole.
Well, that's the thing, and it's if you are not individually divvying up the world, then you are against these individual little things. No, your policy should not be pertain to a certain group of people because you're the government and you'd be treating certain sects of society differently. I thought that's what we're trying to avoid. You know?
No, that's what we're walking right into.
That's what we're walking into.
And really, that's what we're trying to walk out of.
Yeah.
we're trying to walk out of a time of tribalism, you know, into a time of and I think just like Jordan
egalitarianism.
Well, Jordan Peterson says, look, I'll say the pronouns if they come naturally and they're sort of from the ground up and they're words that are, you know, come from us. They're not top down. You know what I mean? And we see that they're trying to top down. So then, and like we talked about, this has been the way it's been. This is, you know, the Democrats or the progressives of any time in history, you know, the word primitive, or you know, if especially in this country, freeing slaves and, you know, giving a black man a right as a human being, these were things that were that progressives were vehemently against. And when we talk about even now, we talk about Antifa, you know, it's like we're so more divided. No, Google Emma Goldman, anarchy, progressivism, statism, these things have always been married, and they're all like right now. We got a lot of anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-whatever, and they're under a lot of different tents. Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of, like you said, the feminists, transgenders.
Yep.
They might be under this sort of progressive banner, but if they were to really start debating, so we just see that there's like this big tent of sort of like anti-establishment, where it's like it's like you know, it's sort of.
I feel like they're railing against things simply to rail against. They're wanting to live the baby.
Well, think about the power of an individual, what he gets when they join in that group.
Yeah,
you know, I was watching. I was watching. I don't remember the name of it. It was a movie about a union.
Yeah.
Right, and it was a pro-union movie, and they passed something, and then when they did the vote, it was a company to go union, and when it turned out that they succeeded, people were jumping up and down. It was like and you think, wow, it's got to feel good.
Yeah.
For the individual to group up and go against the powerful.
Yeah, to have your voice heard.
Exactly.
Supposedly.
But do you think of how wicked that can be as well? You know what I mean? As far as just going along with that. Yeah. So then that way it's like, burn them. You know, take down the rich because, you know, the 99 percenters. It reminds me too of like the Batman Rises, the one with Bane. Where it was like people wanted to see the city burn.
Sure.
You know, and it was because of we've been fed this inequality. We've been fed this, and them fat cats are over there living high on the trough because they're taken from us. You know, and it's a narrative, and it's the narrative that we hear from the progressive far left that the progressive middle has pushed.
Yeah.
But they thought they could control it. But we see now that this far left is like, hey, no, we buy this hook, line, and sinker. And I mean, look.
Well, one
second. They go and protest bankers' houses.
Well, here's the thing: is they are protesting and demanding the fruits of a capitalist economy. It's the most ironic thing. That's why I kind of make the joke. If Bernie Sanders' policies were implemented in the 16, say the 1500s, today would be decrying the high cost of leaches. That's
think about that.
And we would think there should be a free leach for every American. That's literally how we would still be talking. It's to live in such a society that's, if you make $38,000 a year, you are in the top 1% of the world.
Yeah.
And that's not just because, I think a lot of people say, if you ask someone, why is America successful? They're going to think and then be like, fuck, I don't know. Why are we so successful? We're just 300 million people. We're not, we're what, a tenth of the world, not a tenth. Are we a 20th of the world population? We have 7 billion people.
330.
10, 20,
No,
30.
With 3.5 billion it'd be 10. So it's around 4 or 5%.
But 1 second here.
That's the dirty thing about taxes, right?
Well, yeah, but why are we so successful then? And it's free economy. We had a free economy.
There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Free economy. Yeah, we are secluded somewhat by having two oceans on two of our coasts, but we have a free economy, a free people, and all of our greatest things happen in sheds.
Well, and think about the generation of inventing the automobile.
Yeah.
This, that, the other.
Harley.
How long? I mean, this country, it's only 237 years old.
Yeah.
That's how old our Constitution is.
And we have pushed the world farther than any other country in the history of mankind.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Even Ilhan Omar says the average person walking around thinks America the Great. Well, why don't you think that?
Yeah, that's one of the big
because
things,
there's incoming. Okay, nothing is ever going to be perfect, not even within your own household. And it gets. And see, this is the thing about the left, though.
It feels like there is, if you're going to run for that position, you have to have an undying love for the country. If you want to pass anything and be, true in doing so, you have to be America first, then your issues with it second. And I think a lot of people have. Don't pick that up with her.
Well, no, and it's not, and that's the thing too. It's like they say, Trump's a symptom, a symptom,
mm-hmm.
and Omar's just a symptom. This has been festering within the academic.
Trump's so popular because he's so America first.
Well, and there's no denying. Well, unless you're far left, the guy. It's like you think the guy does love the country. Whether he's misguided, whatever,
Yeah, I don't know. I think they've created such a caricature. They get everything through a filter. They get 3-second clips of one sentence he says, and yeah, there are some of those sentences out there. Yeah,
I don't blame
people for if you don't go to a rally, watch a full speech, you won't really understand the man, and he does say very inflammatory things.
Well, sure,
he does.
Well, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we've allowed this anti-capitalistic America as founded, let's just say, sentiment to grow it's going down to kindergarten. It's festered.
Oh, yeah.
In the education system.
The inequality of the United States is due to capitalism. And only our government can solve it.
Well, one of the things that Trump hit Omar on, but let's just say, we can stay out of the weeds with that, just say that she in college, and this isn't to demonize it, this is just a fact, I'm saying she in college took a course that was based on the terrorist point of view. And that's where she was like, the teacher was saying, well, Al-Qaeda with his chest pulled up. But think about this, why is there a college course
on terrorism
points of view?
Well, no. So there is a quote, and that's been kind of quoted recently, where
it's festered with intelligent, critical thinking building.
This is where kind of the issue comes from. This interview was done before she was in Congress.
It's in 2013.
Yes, but so when she was in this interview, she was discussing the way a the professor said the words like Al Qaeda, Hezbollah, and those kind of things. And she's like, why don't they say America like those, or the military like those? And that is kind of where it splits off for me a little bit, because in her mind, is she saying that we should refer to the military or America in similar contexts?
Well, that's why I don't even jump in the weeds.
Al Qaeda. That's the hard thing.
Yeah, it's once you start getting into intentions and this, that, the other. Look,
that's true.
There's enough on the face value of it. I was only bringing it up in the aspect of why is colleges having. I mean, look, if you want to go to college or something, they're going to give you a bunch of elective classes that are baloney. There's no reason for you to take them.
And they want us to pay for them.
And then you have to pay for them, and then they're crying that it's too much debt. And then, they should be crying, but then they're the only thing, you've never heard somebody talk about, the cost of education based on how much the teachers and these professors make.
No.
And how these schools, a lot of them got these trust funds that are huge.
Yeah, well,
huge.
I was thinking, so the University of Minnesota is like $33,000 a year, something about there. You get grants and whatnot. But I ride my bike through there, and there's these kids just playing basketball in a multi-million-dollar building, just to shoot some hoops. But what's wrong with an asphalt courts and two hoops?
What's wrong with that is the state, the biggest employer in the state of Minnesota is the state of Minnesota, and they have their probably unions that they got to keep happy. Over in Cherokee Park,
they want a state-of-the-art system.
It's falling apart. It costs It costs like $340,000 to redo a park. $500,000 up the road.
Oh,
you
sure.
go there and you're
like,
what is this?
Well, what I'm saying here is why
it's like digging a ditch and filling it in.
Why are we making these kids who are supposed to be studying? Why are we making these amenities for them? Because they're paying for them, and it's costing them.
I've thought about this too. It's like
it's a total waste.
Well, it's like we're treating them like the people who ride a bike and like, I'm saving the world. And we say, let them ride it. God bless their heart.
Sure.
And the same thing with these college kids. The narrative in our culture is these kids are going to have to, they're going to be the ones who build the future. They got to blow off some steam. Let's, in college, they're going to get crazy. They're going to do this. They're just finding themselves. And it's like, no, they're losing themselves.
Well, and I think the thing is I think the baby boomer generation, I read a
horrible parents.
I read a lot of Stephen King, and he was very reminiscent of college. The college was the awakening of the baby boomer generation. So they are very fond memories of those, and I think it kind of blinds them. And I want little Timmy to have a great experience. I want look at this multi-million-dollar lunch cafe. Look at the view. Oh, he's gonna remember these so fondly. And then they take out a $33,000 loan. Motherfucker, I went to community college for 3 years, okay?
Well, it was almost the rendering, like the kowtowing to the experts. In history, we kind of are like, hey, wait a minute. We can't trust authority. And all of a sudden the boomers were like, well, it's like they went to the moon. Hey, they did this. Hey, you got to go to college. Hey, you got to do this. Hey, and it's like, wait a minute, guys. You guys left your kids because you guys are out pursuing your adventure, and you forgot it's the adventure.
The boomers are probably some of the. It's probably they're ungrateful.
There's too much security. They're the first generation to grow up in the history of the world with running toilets, water. Like you said, my mom was like electricity. And like Jordan Peterson talks about it, and I've talked with a few customers. It's like the advent of women in the workplace is part to do with hygiene. And the inventions of everything, and being able to navigate the world that is growing and becoming different. I mean, look at I was hearing an academic on NPR yesterday talking about where we're going in the next 100 years and talking about this and that, and it's like, man, we jumped out of a rocket in the last 100 years.
Yeah,
and it's like we're gonna. It's like they act like we're basically not even going to be able to make fists because our brains are going to evolve out of violence, and and it's like, you guys are crazy. The 20th century is the bloodiest in world history. It's going to get crazier.
The electricity goes out. The internet goes
That's
out.
There you go.
Not much is going to separate us from the people 100 years ago. You know,
it's going to be worse.
It'll probably be worse because we know less on how to actually survive and take care of ourselves. We're so dependent on these other systems. Think
about that too.
Yeah.
Think about that and how, like I told you, even yesterday when I was talking to some far left people about the environmental issues, I do it with every person. I bring it back to young men nowadays somehow. Yep. And here we are seeing we get electricity go out, and it's these young men don't know how to even do. They ain't gonna know how to do anything.
What's going on?
Well, and we see that has directly weakened the culture.
Yeah.
And I see through academia's come in. Men are becoming more feminine. Women are becoming more masculine.
Yeah.
I think this doesn't have to be like it's nefarious and no, but it's by design.
I think women just look more masculine in compared to the men now.
Well, and they're even the way they talk.
That's why we think women are more masculine.
Well,
I'm not making up for the men in the room. Well, honestly, that might be kind of how I see it a little bit.
Well, somebody's got to.
I mean, the women will step the fuck up. They will. We settled the West because women wanted a house.
And not only that is, I do believe that in the Grapes of Wrath at the end of the movie, the dad is kind of useless. He can't work, can't provide. Mom's pulling it together.
Yeah.
And she said, women are like a river. It just keeps moving.
Yeah.
And I do believe that and you could judge a civilization or society based on its women.
Yeah.
Because, where they're at is where men are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no doubt that, and I don't think that's a inflammatory statement to say that, if men even for a second drop slack, women are there to pick it up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's been since the beginning of time.
When I
and men are dropping major slack.
Well, I think the thing is so I talked with my sister, and
a beard is not going to make up for the lack of manhood anymore, fellas. Let me just tell you. I'm sorry to say.
So no. I was talking with my sister, and she's gonna make much more money than I will. And she's earned it. God bless her. And she was like, she carries a little umbrage, and she wants, hey, she doesn't want men to make more money than her, which is fine.
Hey.
And she wants everyone to believe that it's okay for women to run the household, to women to be the breadwinners, and
she's riding that pendulum, right?
It's fine, that's an okay thing if it works for you. However, men will be lazy. If society comes to that, our men will get lazy. We need to expect men to be the breadwinners. Otherwise, we're gonna sit and play video games and jerk off.
That's what's happening.
It's what's happening.
Name me someone under 30 in your family that isn't doing that.
I mean, fuck. I'm under 30 in my family.
No, literally in the family. I got a brother who's 30, and I find myself calling him a kid. Whoa! I just had to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This kid's 30. He's not a damn kid.
50 years ago, he'd be a grandpa.
Well, he would have already been in the service, had a 10-year career in something.
Had a 10-year-old kid, It's so funny. It's prolonged adolescence.
Well,
and the thing is that prolonged adolescence can go on forever if you let it.
Well, and it's them baby boomers deferring to the experts who are writing books, and they were all professor, let them be brats. Yeah. It's like, matter of fact, last night, same thing, far left people, environment this, but when we start talking about things, man, kids you can't even discipline the kids anymore. And they're complaining about it, and they don't understand they're the driving force with this issue. You can't even discipline a kid anymore.
If you don't teach a man to be the head of everything, he's going to go looking for another mom when he's dating. That's the thing. And he's going to eventually find one at some point,
Well, and a lot of times too, and here's the thing is certain parents that helicopter like that, I've taken heat for saying this. A lot of parents, despite what they say, they don't want more for their kids. Because people aren't all sunshine and rainbows, So it's like sometimes a mom or a dad doesn't want their kids to do better than them. Small percentage, I'd say a third. But there's also a lot of moms who coddle their boys. And especially if they have a husband that isn't masculine, I'd say it's like 50-50 chance that the mom's going to coddle the boy for the boy to kind of pseudo replace the dad and never leave. And this is kind of like what we see. It's my younger brother's 30 and he's at home. You know what I mean? And it's not quite the same dynamic, but it is the same dynamic because he thinks he's the, you know, the one keeping it together. You know, and he has to be there, but he's convinced himself of this because this is the culture that he's grown up in. That he's been able to be a damn, you know, a man boy and never have to sort of step up to the plate because he can be like, you know, Uncle Rico from Napoleon, where it's like, yeah, you know, live in memories. You know, don't want to be the rough on the kid, but he's worked with me over the years, and he tells people, you know, I got a decent work ethic, or I've worked with you for years, and I had to tell him, bro, you don't have a good work ethic, number one, and number two, if you take up all the time you worked with me over the years, you ain't even got a 2-week paycheck. And you guess what? He gets pissy, he gets mad, then he does, just like we were talking about Kamala Harris, it's the whole patronize, you know, oh, you're against me.
There's an entitlement.
That's the word.
There's an entitlement.
Everybody feels entitled.
Yeah. There's an overabundance of entitlement in the United States right now. That's absolutely true. We should have over-entitlement.
That's by design, top down.
Well, you should have entitlement. You should feel entitled in a capitalist society. That's great. That's how you get what you are, you know, worth. You can be entitled as much as you want in a capitalist country, but you're still only going to get what you are worth. If you don't feel entitled, you won't get what you're worth. However, we are not looking to the capitalist system to help provide this. They are looking to the government, which has no justifications, has no measurements for determining your actual worth.
And the government, the state, is the hero of the AOC narrative.
Yeah.
It all leads
you're entitled
back
to much more than what
train that goes right to there.
Yeah. When you look to the government with entitlement, you automatically assume you're entitled to much more than you would ever have earned yourself. And that is a zero-sum game there, because eventually, if everyone's doing that, you're going to run out of the shits because it wasn't earned.
Let me ask you a question, too, because I know for me, work is, it's not, I don't think, given me an identity, but the value of your labor, the reflection of that is something that does, I don't want this to sound, but it does give a person value to see the value you can create.
Oh, God, yeah.
Totally. And when we sit here, these kids, they don't understand that the value of their labor and the quality of it and the reflection. You know, I worked for a great guy named Kurian Puriel, and you know, just a real smart guy. And just when he said to me, he was talking to another guy, and he said, "Your beauty," and he had a great Indian accent, you know, just a great accent. But your beauty should be reflected in your work. Yeah, and that was in the first year I started working for myself, and I'm like, thank you, you know, universe, you just gave me gold right there. Yeah, and you know, and it's I've tried to tell other guys this, and it's, if you can't see that, or if you can't sort of like, you see where the standard is, and then you see where like good, and then you see excellent. If you can't aim for that excellent, sometimes hit good, sometimes hit just the standard, but once in a while hit that excellent and walk away like, yes. You should always, I mean, that's what makes Tom Brady Tom Brady.
You're the Tom Brady of house painters there, Dennis.
Well, you gotta.
You always have that perspective, though.
Test.
You know, you're not going to hit excellent every time.
No.
I tell myself that every day.
Every day.
I go
Make a fool of myself. Forget a tool.
I go in early and I stay late and I don't take a lunch. Or I eat at my desk, and I'm not always winning every day, but I know we're making progress, and I know we're doing better, and every once in a while, we fucking knock it out of the park, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
I get my ass kicked some days. I'm getting my ass kicked less, though, and I realize that.
Yes.
You know? That's the best thing.
Well, that's bringing order, and that's kind of what we see is just this sort of disorder, and what that does to people. You know, it's like if you were to get a puppy and raise them disorder without order, you ruin that dog's life. he won't be
yeah.
able
Well,
to
he-
play well. He won't be able to.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for?
You wouldn't be able to keep him
simulate.
in the house.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't be able
Yeah.
to let him off the leash. You
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do nothing.
He wouldn't be a part of the
Now
family.
imagine raising human beings that way.
Yeah.
To where they, like you said, they're addicted to porn. They like the video games and they don't mind cucking to which I like. I don't even know what that word means.
They want to receive, not give.
Mom.
That's-
Yeah. Well, mom's yelling at him.
Well, yeah, it's a bad thing. I just don't know. I don't know. It's,
Where are we going with that?
I mean,
and I think people are rejecting it because at the end of the day, like I said, if you don't value labor, you're almost worthless.
yeah.
And people are getting that. It's like people who make it say, "Holy crap! I gotta activate, and move forward.
Yeah.
You got to get up and go, or just lay where you fell."
And I think a lot of people, when they're basically what they're saying is, but it's hard, and I don't want to. Of course, it's hard. It wouldn't be worth doing if it wasn't.
No.
If it was easy, it'd be done, and we wouldn't be doing it anymore. That's the thing. The only
getting
tasks
to work
left
early,
to do.
that's not easy.
That fucking sucks.
I don't do that.
That's when traffic's going too.
But we all do our different things. Today I was painting a deck floor. I was sitting there and I was leaking, just drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
I had a rag. I was wiping my forehead and I thought, now I know why the Cowboys got handkerchiefs.
Yeah.
To catch all this frickin' sweat.
Yeah.
And they wear a hat to block the damn sun.
Fuck yeah. You get yourself a cowboy hat.
Practical. You know what I mean? But in those moments, man, after I got it done, I felt strong. I felt victorious because I climbed the damn mountain.
Yeah.
The mountain didn't sit there and just get bigger for me, and nobody brought me, a morsel of bread and say, "Here, pour you."
Yeah.
Well, and once you start getting used to that morsel of bread, I mean, you might as well you just killed the bear.
I would say so, and I think
he can't go exist anymore as what he was destined to be. He's just going to come like a little lame bear and hope for the scraps.
Well, I think another thing is we're also getting away from we're physical beings. We are being we're being much too ethereal and mind driven. And I think about a time when I was working, I was managing a property in a suburb. It was a small property, and we didn't have a maintenance guy. So I had to run the property. I had to do renewals, do tours, take rent, post rent, and then I had to go move. I had to replace people's fridges. My last week there, I replaced the toilet. And replacing toilets suck. I had to change light bulbs. I had to fix light bulbs and shit like that, and when I plugged in a fridge and it worked, when I changed out the thermostat of a fridge and it worked, when I put that toilet back down, screwed it in, flushed it, and it went down, I felt so much better than when I had, signed a lease with somebody, or I had completed a task on my computer, because we measure things physically, not mentally. I don't think. It's much more natural. You can still feel great about getting your report in on time, but you don't have that tangibility to it. That's one thing I miss quite a bit.
And I think that's what we're instinctually getting back to. I mean, when the theory of relativity, suddenly everything became relative.
Yeah.
Evolution came along. Well, everything's evolving.
Yeah.
Well, now it's like we've kind of taken that mind trip, and now it's like whatever the future was, it's here. It's 2020.
Yeah.
And all of the movies from the 90s, when you watch them again, the dates were 2014, 2032, and it's like I'm watching a movie about the future in 2032. I'm like, there ain't nothing
gonna happen.
Well, there's nothing different about 2032 than today.
No.
And it's
we're still getting people.
Well, we're getting back to what is value. It's kind of like we got off of the gold standard, and it's like now it's like we're coming back to it's like money has no value. Now it's like, what is a value? Well, your labor's valuable because, it's kind of like, that whole AOC and them, the reason we need socialism is because there's vulture capitalists and, they're taking this. So it's like, we've kind of lost the value of things because what's the difference? With her saying, I don't even know if you should have kids, and it's like, okay, well, you just ruined the value.
That was the dumbest, that was the most small-minded thing she's ever said. Though.
I read a book.
The lack of context in that
all she needed was to get it out there.
Was ridiculous. She's basically that person holding the sign on the side of the road. The end is near.
Yeah,
a person's been on the side of the road holding that sign for centuries.
That's what I said. It's just like saying the wildfires or the hurricanes. They're telling us something. That's the same thing as looking
God
up.
Told me.
Dancing around a fire.
The fire god told me the Earth's gonna end in 7 days.
And that's
the kind of stuff.
Well, and
people believe it, and they accept it, and they
want to.
And they get very passionate about these things too.
Mm-hmm.
It's calm down. Shit's gonna get rocked regardless, but we end up being okay.
There's only one guarantee.
Yeah, the Earth. So the United States in 1929, 1930 was much more abysmal, much more end of times than we will ever see in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fuck the Dust Bowl. Literally a dust storm went to Washington, D.C., and it caused them to enact some farm bill. Look it up. There was a dust storm, and people died in Washington, D.C. because of Oklahoma.
I mean, it's
crazy. It's crazy. Just calm the fuck down. Stop trying to get the government to do everything for you. Do it yourself. You'll feel better. It's the dumbest thing. It's just annoying.
And once you kick sort of that power over, it's like even the stock market recession of 2008.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, if you would have hung on and not taken all of the world is ending, wherever you were at, you would have been fine. It's sort of like but some people couldn't ride it out, and there's where we do have a vulture. I mean, if there's it's like we already talked about this, and it's simple common sense, and Peterson laid it out perfect. The top 5% of basketball players get all the damn money. The top 5 of the best looking guys and the most alpha, they get all the chicks.
Yeah.
You think the average actor's salary is probably like $20 that they get in tips from waiting.
Yeah.
But it's just the guys at the top that are making the millions and millions.
Oh yeah.
And there's that game where we've been sort of, us little piss ants are fighting with the worker ants who are comparing themselves to the ruling class of ants.
Yeah.
And there's where we see this huge this is why it's like I said, I don't really I don't get into like the emotional side of politics because it's all distraction. It's all rhetoric. Yeah. It's all designed to kind of pull you or push you.
It's a ploy and a plea.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get to the root of any issue. It's like we see with talking to people, it takes so long to have a real conversation because you got to go through this, through that, around here of all these surface issues. It's before, like, this is why I'm able to talk someone because, it's like if you say, like I was saying, somebody said he doesn't know if we're going to be able to grow vegetables outside of a greenhouse in the next decade. The planets and oceans dying in our lifetime. What's going to be evolve after us? This, that, the other. I can. Let me finish the thought. Is like I can listen to those without having to sort of meet you head on because I probably have a few emotional beliefs. So it's like Elon Omar. I don't mind hearing you out. I don't have to react, and I can say, okay, I hear you, and then we can talk about a different subject, and that's where you can find common ground. And that type of, first off, people don't want to just meet on an open level like that.
I'll admit when it comes to Ilhan Omar, she's my representative, so I get to be a little more emotional. I'm a little more emotional. Emotional because I don't like a couple interviews that I listened to. And there's a lot I don't like about her.
Yeah.
And if she was Republican, I would probably like her a lot more.
Well, but she would have a different worldview,
Democrat. It's the Democrat that fucking puts me off from the top.
Yeah.
I hate it's political and it's bullshit and it's condescension in politics is bullshit because they can be all ethereal and in the worlds they build in their mind, sure they're right, but in the real world they're probably not.
Well, and they won't even debate that real world. It's sort of like I'm gonna be just disregard you and move on to the next one. You know, I think you
can sell people the world, but as long as that doesn't come to fruition, you'll always be right. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's been my biggest problem with what I see is you know, what happens when the left goes too far is that advocating for the state, that central government is to me, I don't see where you can say, hey Dennis, I sat down and looked at it, and look at Belgium did this between this and this is really the way, or Sweden. There's nowhere
this instance,
it doesn't exist, because once you build the big state, you get the little individual. There's no way around it. So, and this is why a lot of the left ends up being rhetoric and narrative, you know, instead of, and the right ends up being a little bit more wanting to sort of be literal and head on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we see that, which I see is like the left wants to debate on their terms, and if they can't, they won't. No. Sort of like saying, because they won't go on Fox News.
Well, the thing is because when you debate, you can ask for details, and the details is where the devil is for those.
Well, and it's where you can be, you have to give to get. Because, like I said, I've had conversations where, you know, one was where I was talking about people aren't solid, and men aren't solid, and a good friend of mine says, well, what is solid? And I was like, I've had to really totally revamp what that was, because I hadn't thought it through, and I wouldn't have sort of been able to venture down that road to get a little bit more refined if I didn't jump in and want to mix it up and possibly be wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is there's about Mrs. Omar is I've never seen a conversation or even an attitude or a body language that says, maybe I could be wrong about this.
Well, what we need is...
You know what I mean? And you say, well, Trump doesn't act that way either.
We need more debates. We need more debates. People don't debate anymore, and they don't debate enough. We need to have our congressmen and our senators to go every month debate another member of Congress. Fucking get your ideas out there, record it, put it on the internet, let us all talk about it. Instead, they have these very echo chamber events there where I promise this with no rebuttal, you know?
Yeah.
That's the tough part, because we're just seeing these ideas in vacuums. We're not seeing true pushback. It's like I say, if you want to hear a fantastic interview, listen to NPR interview a Republican. Mm-hmm. If you want to hear an echo chamber, listen to NPR interview a Democrat.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. NPR is capable of doing fantastic interviews. However, they are capable of doing terrible interviews and basically talking points.
Well, because they don't, it's sort of like those blinders are on.
Yeah.
They don't.
I don't even know if they realize.
I don't think so either.
Realize. Yeah. I don't think they do.
No.
It's like, oh yeah, that's reality. That's that's reality to me. That's real. I'm not going to question that. But when they have a Republican on, they're living in a different world with a different set of rules that make no sense.
Well, it's sort of like feet are going to be held to the fire.
Yeah, that too.
I mean,
yeah.
Just
probably a little touch of fuck this guy.
Yeah, no, I was just listening to AM 950 yesterday, and they were saying, you know, Trump's base, I mean, they don't want to challenge, they accept all this, and I'm thinking, that was Obama, bro.
Yeah.
And, you know...
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
I thought it was fun. I watched a video today. It was some congressman, and he was talking, I don't know if this is true, but it's really interesting if it is. He said, Donald Trump has never built a single cage. All the cages you see were built under the Obama administration.
That makes sense. Yeah.
If that's true, what the fuck?
Well, and
what the fuck?
Well,
like, someone needs to look that up, because there's been so much fucking consternation and bullshit over these cages, but nothing for 8 years beforehand? What?
Well, and
that would take the veil off of a lot of people, I think.
And it should, but at the end of the day, though, the ones who have and want to keep veiling, it's like that takes a veil off and they want to whap it back on.
Well, why haven't we heard about that? Because liberal media, they're not going to talk about it. I thought another funny thing is you remember those pictures of AOC crying at the border in front of the children she saw there? She was crying in front of a fence of an empty parking lot.
Yes, I saw that too.
I don't know if they were staged. It looks like those were staged.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. She did. I'll have to look at the photos. Did they try to make it look like she was looking at the kids?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, they did. And also, she's complaining about the facilities down there, and they're overcrowded. Yep. You're first off, you're advocating and you are going along with the boycotts of the company who makes beds and the stuff for the facilities. So you weren't allowing supplies to get them. You cut that off. Secondly, you won't give them funding to build more facilities. What?
They literally have it like she's looking at them.
Absolutely. So, yeah, but that's the same thing about the Russia thing. It's like you catch them over and over and over, and then it's like, but they yelled, send her back.
Is this real?
Yeah, that's absolutely real.
It's an empty parking lot.
Send her back. Which is just the same thing as lock her up. And guess what? Nobody's getting locked up.
Hillary Clinton should be locked up. That's another thing.
But it's just rhetoric. And you get people there doing this, that, the other, But
what?
Look, AOC voted against the funding to build more facilities. What they want what did Obama say? They wanted an overwhelm the system. And they were bringing them in. Obama was like, they're bringing them in, they ship them all over the country. Isn't that crazy how they did that? And it's like he's trying to keep it right there, and they won't fund it.
We need to wrap this up, but I think the funniest thing ever is Donald Trump. When they're like, oh, we're a sanctuary city, Donald Trump's like, okay, we're going to send them all to you then.
What?
That would be scary. That would be scary having that many people show up. But Dennis, we're at an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's time to go.
I think that was pretty good.
Well, and I think the thing too is we don't have to sort of take the bait and walk right through the doors they say. Sometimes you can have a conversation that sort of rises above the issues and sort of it encompasses them to where you don't have to, jump through this hoop or that hoop, because that's not where the truth is.
I'll admit, I think I came off a little more conservative this week just because Ilhan Omar was involved so heavily in this podcast.
Well, let me just...
I think I came off pretty darn conservative this week.
Well, I would say that you always just want to kind of be yourself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day...
which is what I was.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it's like we both have, and we all have, I don't care if you're right, left, center, we all have ideas that if we were to share them unfiltered, most people would be like, what?
The fuck?
Yeah.
I was thinking that earlier today.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. We appreciate you listening all the way through. If you are hearing my voice right now, Dennis and I would be very pleased for a like, share, subscribe.
Grateful.
Pleased as punch. So give us a like, share, subscribe. This has been another episode of That's Your Opinion, man. You guys have a great day, night, evening, beer on the way to work, whatever you're doing. All right.